Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Raheel. I'm a product leader and an entrepreneur currently living and working in Dubai. In this video, I want to talk about product metrics, especially if you're working at or running a software as a service, also known as a SaaS startup. I'm going to go through all the important metrics that you need to know by heart that will determine how well your startup is doing. Let's dive in. All right. So we're going to look into six different categories within SaaS. So we're looking into growth, retention, unit economics, margin, capital efficiency, and engagement. So let's start off with our number one category, which is growth. Now, when I talk about growth, this is not user growth, this is revenue growth. And there are three different ways in which we are going to measure revenue growth. Number one is monthly recurring revenue, and the second is annual recurring revenue, which is 12 multiplied by monthly recurring revenue. This is the revenue that you get on a recurring basis. But if it's a one time fee, contract, or a consulting, you have to remember that it is not a recurring revenue. So, very careful to make this distinction. Then within the MRR, we have multiple different components. For example, number one, we have retained MRR, which is if I had the same number of same amount of dollar value last month, I get the same this month. That is retained MRR. Expansion MRR is if a user was paying $50 last month, now they're paying $100. So I've expanded. Number three is new sales. It's the new amount of monthly recurring revenue that I'm bringing in. And resurrected MRR is basically if a customer churned last month, I was able to regain that customer. Then on the negative side, there's contracted MRR. For example, if I was on a $100 package, but now I'm on a $50 package, that's contracted MRR, which is negative. And finally, I have churned MRR, which basically is I'm no longer a customer. So churned, contracted are both negative, and the above four are all positive components of a monthly recurring revenue. Then finally, we're going to look into customer concentration, which basically is my growth or my revenue coming from big contracts versus multiple small contracts. For example, if my revenue is 90% concentrated in one customer, that's not a good thing. But if my 90% of revenue is coming from 200 or a lot of customers, then again, it's not a really a good thing because I have to acquire a lot of customers to get to that level of revenue. So customer concentration gives me a good picture of my concentration of revenue within my customers. Next up, we have a very important metric called retention, which basically means how many customers am I retaining every single week or month. And this is analyzed by doing a cohort analysis, which is where I group customers based on their sign up period. And then I measure or track the percentage that remains my customer over time. Now, for example, I have cohorts of customers acquired in May, June, and July. And then I track how many retain over the next 5 weeks. So in May, I had 100. The second week, 10 left, then again 10 left, then again 10 left. Now I'm losing customers, which is not a good thing. But in June, if I have 100 customers over the next 5 months, this means that this cohort did really, really well. The first thing that I need to measure is my dollar retention, which is how much revenue is a cohort generating in each period relative to its original size, which basically means that if I acquired a certain level of cohort number of customers in May, are they increasing or are they regaining their original value or not? Okay, which basically means that if my customers were spending $100 last month, I want them to ideally upsell and spend $110 collectively in the following month, right? That is what I call expansion revenue. Ideally, the dollar retention needs to be greater than 100%. If it's not greater than 100%, this means you have leaky bucket and customers are leaving. Second metric to measure is the logo retention, which basically is number of customers who stay active. Maximum you can be, this value is can be 100%. But if it's less than 100%, this means that customers, companies are leaving, and that's problematic. All right. Now, unit economics. This is analyzing sales efficiency. Okay. Now, unit economics are extremely important. It actually tells us whether our growth is sustainable and efficient or not. Okay. Because you can achieve fake growth if you're selling a dollar for a penny or 50 cents. Of course, you're going to grow, but that is not sustainable. So you have to remember that. So number one metric that we measure is net sales, annual recurring revenue versus sales and marketing expenses, which basically means how much did sales and marketing spend and how much business did they bring in. Okay, which basically means that at the end of the day, new sales annual recurring revenue should be greater than sales and marketing spend. Something that you really have to take into account. Next up, we have customer acquisition cost. Customer acquisition cost is how much cost are you paying to acquire a single customer? And this is a very important metric because if you're acquiring customers very expensively, it's not going to work. And how you calculate this is sales and marketing expense divided by the number of new customers added in the same time period. And the goal is to keep your CAC as low as possible. That's how you gain efficiency. Okay, next up we have new annual contract value versus customer acquisition cost. Okay, so annual contract value is basically how much new value that you're bringing in from your customer. Ideally, your account annual contract value should be greater than your CAC, because if it's not, then you don't have healthy unit economics. Next up is the CAC payback period, which basically means how many months it takes for the customer to generate enough profit for you to get back your customer acquisition cost. And how we calculate this is by looking at sales and marketing expense and dividing it by monthly recurring revenue, multiply our gross margins. Now, let's talk about margins. Now, within margins, you have gross margins, which are basically revenue minus cost of goods sold. Ideally, they should be, in the longer run for software companies, they should be at least 75%. That's what the industry average is. Because if you have low margins, that basically means you have a mechanical Turk problem, which basically means that you're using humans to perform product capabilities, which basically means that you're not truly a pure software company. So your gross margins need to be really healthy, and you need to operate in a very lean fashion without adding a lot of more people to do what your product can do instead. Next up, we have customer lifetime value, which is the cumulative gross profit contribution net of CAC of average customer in your cohort. This actually tells us about the health of your users within your company. Because at the end of the day, if a customer churns, LTV flattens out. And you start with the negative LTV because you've spent a lot of money on getting that customer. You haven't really gotten your CAC back. So let's say Over the next couple of months, you start with multiple different LTVs, and the faster you get to the zero mark, the faster you get your payback CAC back, the faster you'll be able to grow more profits from that specific customer. So in this case, as you can see, the faster the LTV line crosses the zero one, the more money we'll be able to get in within our company. So by this, you can actually track how quickly it gets you have to take to get from negative lifetime value to positive. Next up, we have capital efficiency, and there's only one metric that we look into, which is the burn multiple. Now, the burn multiple is net burn divided by net new ARR. And net burn is cash revenue minus cash operating expenses divided by net annual recurring revenue plus expansion annual recurring revenue minus churned annual recurring revenue. Now, what exactly does burn multiple tells us? It tells us that if we spend $1, how much new net ARR are we bringing in? So for example, if our burn multiple is 1, that means if we are spending $1 and we are gaining $1 in new net ARR. But if our burn multiple is 4x, that basically means that we are spending $1, and for every dollar spent, we're only gaining $0.25 new net ARR, which is not a good thing. So here's a small little table that is going to show you the ideal metric range. Okay. So for burn multiple that is under 1, that is amazing. Okay. If it's between 1 to 1.5, it's great. If it's between 1.5 to 2, it's good. If it's between 2 to 3, it's meh. But if it's over 3, it's really bad. And mainly, there are 3 reasons for this. Number 1 is that you have a very inefficient sales and marketing strategy, or you are very bad at allocating capital, or you have a very high customer churn. All 3 of these can be reasons for very high burn multiples. And then finally, we have engagement. It's a consumer metric because, but it also applies to SaaS now because we have freemium and free tier business models. So it can be very useful. So number 1 metric within engagement that we have to look at is daily active users divided by monthly active users. And this is the ratio of daily active users with monthly active users, which ideally should be 40%. And this basically means that a monthly active user is coming onto the platform 2 times in 1 week or 8 times per month, which is actually pretty solid. We don't consider weekends into this. We only consider weekdays because those are active working days. Then the second that we have to look into is daily active users with weekly active users. The ratio ideally should be 60%, which basically means that 3 out of 5 weekdays your users are on your platform, which is very high and very solid. There you have it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the end. In this video, we learned multiple different metrics that we need to track if you really want to run or build a successful SaaS startup. There were 6 categories that we went into, and we discussed multiple metrics. I hope you found this video very valuable, and if you did, please don't forget to like, share your comments with me. If I missed any metric, let me know in the comments, and share this with your friends. And I hope to see you soon in my next video. Thank you.